Tennessee looks to win back-to-back games on the third Saturday in October for the first time since 2004. Patrick Brown and Mike Rodak here to break down this game. Last year's upset was an instant classic. The Vols winning 52-49 in Knoxville, snapping a 15-game losing streak to the Tide, their first win in the Nick Saban era. I think the goalposts from Neyland Stadium are safe in this one as the Vols head to Tuscaloosa, but Tennessee has struggled on the road, losing 27 straight games to AP top 15 teams. So, Patrick, how did the Vols get over the road woes here?
Yeah, Grace, I think the last time we talked, it was before Tennessee went down to Florida, and they lost that game on the road. Tennessee hasn't won in Gainesville since 2003, and usually when Tennessee goes down to the Swamp, that place brings out the worst in the Vols. And Tennessee's also not won at Bryant-Denny Stadium since 2003, but I believe all but one of those matchups was against Nick Saban, including won his first season at Alabama. But more recently, Tennessee's just they've had issues with hostile environments. We mentioned the Florida game earlier this season, going back to the end of last season at Georgia, at South Carolina. Those were games that Tennessee lost, and they had communication issues on the offense. They had false start penalties that got them behind the sticks and really disrupted the rhythm and tempo of their offense. And that's something they're going to have to fix going into this game, because this offense is so predicated on rhythm and flow. And it's hard to get in much of a flow when you're backing up 5 yards and playing in second and third and long. So Tennessee's got to be ready for a hostile environment. Obviously, Alabama fans are going to have revenge on their mind, and Tennessee's just got to have more poise, more composure, a little bit more mental fortitude to handle it when things inevitably go wrong on the road and momentum is and the crowd is behind the home team.
Yeah, it sounds familiar for Alabama on the road. They had 9 false start penalties a couple weeks ago at Texas A&M, and that's something obviously that is better at home for them. They don't have to deal with the road crowd, the road environment that they had last year in Knoxville, and that was a game where Nick Saban said they walked out of the tunnel and he kind of looked around and looked in the faces of his players, and he thought they were anxious. He saw anxiety in his players last year in that environment. So coming back home to Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's a place that Alabama did lose to Texas earlier this year in that stadium, but generally they've been very, very good. You know, the previous loss before that, you have to go back all the way to 2019 against LSU. So it's not a place that Alabama often loses. This is also a little bit of a different Alabama team. So we'll have to see, how much the home factor plays in for Alabama. But certainly I would expect their offense to function a little bit better than it did on the road at Texas A&M a couple weeks ago.
Now, offensively, both of these teams struggling relative to what they were last year. On the Alabama side, they've had to adjust to the new offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, who had to tweak the playbook a little to kind of figure out, how to suit it to Jalen Milroe's strengths. So, Mike, what's the key to getting this offense into rhythm?
That's exactly it. They need some consistency, both in the passing game and in the running game. And the running game right now is something that ranks, if it continued as it is for Alabama, it would be their worst rushing offense since 2006, so before the Nick Saban era. And it's something where they've had some good stretches in the running game. They had a drive early against Arkansas last weekend where they had 3 straight runs at 15 yards or more, but it just hasn't been consistent. And that's something you hear Nick Saban talk about, is having the efficiency of 4+ yard runs. But, the passing game has been explosive. We've seen some big plays, some guys wide open, quite frankly, the last couple weeks, and Jalen Milroe being able to hit those. But I know one of those touchdowns came right after a bad snap and a fumble. And it's an offense that from one play to the next, you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what you're going to get from them. And just trying to even that out and iron that out is the biggest issue right now for Alabama.
Patrick, I'll go to you for Tennessee. The Vols have been having trouble connecting on the explosive pass plays, but they've also evolved into one of the best rushing attacks in the nation. Jalen Wright leading the SEC in rushing yards with 4 straight 100-yard games. So how important is it for Tennessee to establish the ground game first?
Well, Grace, it's really important for Tennessee because that's what they're doing best right now. The passing game has been a struggle. It's been up and down with Joe Milton and his receivers not being able to make a lot of plays. This is definitely not the 2022 Tennessee offense. There is a Jalen that's still featured, but it's Jalen Wright instead of Jalen Hyatt. And I think you would be hard-pressed to find a running back that's playing better than Jalen Wright is right now. I believe he's in the top 3 in the SEC in rushing and in yards per carry. And I think he leads the league in rushes of 10-plus yards with 26 on just 80 carries. So he's doing that rather frequently. And there's a couple other running backs that are also doing a good job. Jabari Small is a steady veteran. Dylan Sampson is the sophomore that's got some home run ability. But Wright's playing well, and I think Tennessee's offensive line is executed really well. It's not a group that's really going to overpower you, but they're executing really well up front with their variety of schemes. They'll do a lot of stuff up front. They'll pull tackles. They'll pull guards. The tight ends are involved, and Tennessee's been able to punish light boxes when defenses have played with 6 up close to the line of scrimmage. And that said, Tennessee didn't run the ball very well at Florida, again, going on the road. The difference, I think, in that game, this one, is that Cooper Mays will be back. Tennessee's preseason All-SEC center has played the last 2 games, and not coincidentally, Tennessee's offensive line has probably had its 2 best games of the season, including running for 232 yards against Texas A&M's defense, which is really good against the run. So they're running the ball really well right now, and they certainly have to keep that going to keep the offense, really give the offense a chance, given how much the passing game is hit and miss right now.
Now, guys, when I look at this game, I kind of feel like it'll have a similar feel to last week's game, Texas A&M and Tennessee, and even Arkansas, Bama, in that it'll be a battle in the trenches. Both of these teams' pass rush ranks tops in the country. Alabama 3rd in the FBS in sacks and Tennessee 5th. Now, Mike, we know the struggles Bama's O-line has had all year, so how do they keep Jalen Milroe protected in this matchup?
Yeah, it's always a multifaceted thing, and they've given up the 4th most sacks in the country so far this year, and it's been a problem every single week for the offensive line. They've had 4 more sacks the last 5 games, and part of that is on them. I mean, there's certain times, especially at left tackle, where we've seen guys get beat. There's also times when Jalen Milroe just simply needs to get rid of the ball, and he's a guy who wants to run around, he wants to scramble, he wants to try to make plays, but that's something that Nick Saban preaches, is that you need to be a point guard and not be a shooting guard, and it's not always up to you to make the play. You need to get rid of the ball, you need to distribute the ball, you need to make good decisions. And, that's something I'd say about half the time is causing the sacks, and half the time it's just the offensive line. And again, it's that left tackle spot in particular that's been the big problem for Alabama. The freshman Caden Proctor, second year Elijah Pritchett have been rotating, and quite frankly, neither one of them has gotten the job done to this point.
Yeah, Mike, I think that's a chance for Tennessee. That's a matchup that they probably feel good about going into the game, and I think they have to take advantage for the Vols to really have a chance. They're getting really good play from really the entire defense, but it's the defensive line that's really been making the headlines, and it starts with James Pierce Jr., a former blue chip recruit that's having a breakout season as a sophomore. He's been really effective off the edge, speed, the power rush, the ability to time the snap and really just go around tackles and make plays. He's also got some good inside moves as well. Tyler Barron's another guy that will come off the edge. He can also play inside, and he's able to affect the quarterback. I think those 2 guys have combined for 11 of Tennessee sacks, but there's some other interior guys that are playing really well right now too. And Tennessee secondary, I think, has to be mentioned as well. That was a group that was really maligned last season. I think they were 127th in pass defense. I think now they're in the top 30. Defensive backs have made some plays, and certainly your life is easier when you know your pass rush is going to get home. But for Tennessee and the defense and the way it's played this season, I think it really starts with the defensive line and Pierce and Barron and those guys, and they need those guys to be dominant again. They were against South Carolina, really overwhelmed both South Carolina and Texas A&M up front, and I think they're going to do that again for Tennessee to have a chance in this game.
Last year, we had that incredible shootout, the 2 teams combining for 101 points. Odds makers expecting to have half of that scoring. The total for this game set at 49 for all the reasons we've discussed above. But Patrick, what is the key here to getting a win?
Yeah, Grace, I think if how Tennessee handles playing on the road is the first big question for the Vols. The second is the play of Joe Milton at quarterback. He's been consistently inconsistent is probably the best way to put it really all season. The passing game, as we've talked about, has really yet to get going, and Tennessee certainly needs some guys on the perimeter to make some plays at wide receiver, and that's going to be tougher with Brew McCoy going out for the season against South Carolina. But Milton can't make the mistakes that he's made in the past couple weeks. I believe he had almost around 270 of his first attempts as a Tennessee quarterback where didn't have an interception. He's got 3 in the past 2 games. In each of the past 2 games, he's thrown one right to the safety in the middle of the field that he just didn't see or forced to throw. And he's got 4 interceptions on the season. 2 of them were in the red zone, so you're costing your offense points, and 2 more set up short touchdown drives for the opponent. So that's giving the other team more points. Those are mistakes that he simply can't make. He's got to make the easy throws. There's going to be guys open in Tennessee's offense, just the way they scheme things up and the way they play with the tempo and the spacing. We saw that last year in this matchup. He's got to make those easy throws, and I think he also has to continue to use his legs as a scrambler, as a runner, getting away from pressure, as he did really effectively against Texas A&M last week. He's got to continue those things, but I think first and foremost, he's got to make the easy throws, and he can't throw the ball to Alabama.
And as Patrick mentioned, this is a much different Tennessee offense than last year. It's one that really beat Alabama through the air last year with their explosive plays. This year, it's a running game that's really the key for Alabama to stop. And this is a Tennessee offense that's in the top 10 in the country in rushing the football. It's an Alabama defense that's also in the top 10 in stopping the run. And we've seen them shut down Texas. We saw them shut down Ole Miss with Quinshon Judkins. SEC-wise, they've played a couple offenses that don't run the ball all that well. Texas A&M, Mississippi State. Even Mississippi State was able to run the ball a little bit in the second half of that game with some lapses. So really how this Alabama front seven performs, and if they can avoid those sort of lapses against the run and really force Tennessee to throw the ball, force Joe Milton to push the ball down the field and see if you can make some mistakes, that's really the key for Alabama. If Tennessee starts running the ball all over them, that's going to be a problem for Alabama on Saturday.
All right, it's the game of the week on CBS, and it's going to be a good one. Thanks, Patrick and Mike, for joining us. And for more game coverage, check out Bama 24/7 and Go Vols 24/7. They got you covered with your Tennessee and Alabama football and recruiting news all season long.